俺、アキラが好きなんだ。
Akira couldn't make out what he said. The words were too fast. His voice was too small. Or perhaps Akira's brain had simply refused to understand. Perhaps the words were just too alien. He gaped at Keisuke, saying nothing.
いきなりこんなこと気持ち悪いと思うかもしれないけど、というか気持ち悪いんだろうけど、俺もアキラも男で、でもずっと。
Keisuke's initial momentum soon withered and his words trailed off into silence. It was clear from his expression that he wished he hadn't said anything. When Akira remained silent, however, panic made him pick up where he left off.
アキラを女の子みたいに見てるとか、男が好きとか、そういうことじゃないんだ。アキラ以外の男に対してこんな風に思ったことは一度もないし、これからだってありえないだろうし、普通に女の子が好きだったよ、俺だって。アキラが好きだって気づくまでは。だから、うまく言えないんだけど。
Having gotten that far, he took a deep breath, then looked straight into Akira's eyes.
男とか外見とかそういうことじゃなくて、俺、アキラが好きみたいなんだ。アキラじゃなきゃダメなんだ。
By this point, Akira had managed to process what Keisuke was telling him. He found himself surprisingly calm. At the same time, however, he was clueless about how to respond. He had never thought of other men as potential objects of romance. For that matter, he had never felt that way about women either. He didn't know what it meant to fall in love. He judged others based on how comfortable he was around them, whether they were male or female, or even a dog or a cat didn't factor into the equation. Gender, appearance, those things were ultimately skin deep. If what lay underneath was a good match for him, then nothing else mattered. Which was why, although the situation might seem abnormal to another person, Akira liked any such reaction. He was simply confused about how to respond.
お前はどう思う？
何が？
恋愛感情とかそういうもの。
そうだな。
Keisuke's gaze drifted away, and he lapsed into thought. He must not have expected Akira to lob such a question at him.
俺が思うのは、お互いに心から信頼できて、尊敬できて、喧嘩もできて、楽しいと思える相手と一緒にいることかな。
How idealistic. But it didn't sound so bad. It resembled Akira's own criteria for measuring how he felt about other people.
俺には恋愛感情とかよくわからない。
そうだよな。やっぱり男同士だし、おかしいよな。
Keisuke raked a hand through his bangs, eyes downcast.
いいんだ俺。アキラのそばにいられるだけで嬉しいし、どうにかしようと思って言ったんじゃなくて。
まだ何も言ってないだろ。お前とは孤児院にいる時からずっと一緒だろ。気がつくといつも横にいたよな、お前。
His words made Keisuke show him a small, embarrassed grin.
俺にとってアキラは憧れの存在だったんだ。なんていうか、他の子たちと違って少し大人びててかっこよかった。だから何とかして仲良くなりたいって思って必死だった。
最初は正直鬱陶しいと思ってた。なんでついてくるんだって。けどあれから結局今まで一緒にいるんだよな。
そうだな。俺にとっては信じられないことだけど、俺容量悪いから今まで何か成功した試しがなくて、アキラのそばにいられるってだけでもすごいことだよ。
だからそういう言い方やめろよ。
For a time, the two of them said nothing. Keisuke was looking at his feet and fidgeting, apprehension playing on his face. Akira, meanwhile, was thinking about how to reply, about how he felt. He wouldn't like to spare Keisuke's feelings. He intended to give voice to whatever answer emerged naturally from within. How did he feel about Keisuke? Where did he see them going from here? Memories flowed past his mind's eye. Memories of the time he and Keisuke had spent together. A fast span, leading up to the present. He knew what he wanted to say.
お前がいなくなった時焦ったんだ。けどそんな自分が意外だったし驚いた。いつの間にかお前がそばにいるのが当たり前だと思ってたことに気づいて。
アキラ。
だからお前のことは絶対助けようと思った。何があっても。
Keisuke looked at him, wide-eyed. He was starting to get flushed again.
アキラ、それって。
Keisuke's voice was overcome with emotion. Something jumped in Akira's gut, and he turned his face to the side. In his own way, he had done his best to convey how he felt. It was harder here, now that heads were cooler, than it had been during that desperate fight in the rain.
これじゃ答えになってないか。
He asked tersely, his gaze still averted. Keisuke squeezed his eyes shut, as if fighting for control. Then drove at Akira a second later, and threw his arms around him.
アキラ。アキラ、アキラ。
There was no time to dodge. Keisuke's momentum knocked him flat on his back.
おい、落ち着けよ。
Keisuke wasn't listening. His face was buried in Akira's chest, nuzzling at him like a dog. Taken aback, Akira grabbed Keisuke's shoulders and pulled him away. Their eyes met. Keisuke had gone bright red.
どうしよう。ごめん。俺、嬉しくって。
突っ走りすぎるんだよ、お前は。
ごめん。
It was a little funny to see Keisuke's eyebrows sag. The sight reminded Akira of a disappointed puppy. All of a sudden, Keisuke's face stiffened, and he gave Akira a worried glance.
アキラ。
なんだよ。
その、気持ち悪くないか？こうやって、俺に抱きつかれたりとか。
The embrace had been unexpected, to be sure, but he wasn't repulsed by it.
別に。
じゃあ、こういうのは。
Keisuke laid a hand on the side of his face. It was warm. He'd been half frozen when Akira had brought him here, but now he was warm again.
嫌じゃない。
Instead of answering, he gazed suddenly into Keisuke's eyes, leaving his hand right where it was. Keisuke looked back at him tentatively, his expression a mixture of shyness and doubt. When he realized that Akira wasn't going to slap his hand away, his face suddenly drew closer.
じゃあ、これは。
Before his whisper could fade, his lips brushed Akira's, then quickly retreated. The sensation was dry, yet soft. Keisuke gazed at him from inches away, a feverish light in his eyes.
いや。
The rising temperature of Keisuke's skin told Akira what he thought. As to whether he harbored similar desires, frankly, he couldn't tell. But that didn't mean he wanted it to stop. What Akira felt was not so clear-cut. Rather than a yes or a no, he felt instead a sense of total acceptance. Keisuke was someone he wanted to be with. That was the only thing that mattered. So no matter what happened, if it was with Keisuke, he was sure that it would be alright. In answer to Keisuke's question, he slowly shook his head. Immediately, Keisuke kissed him again. Forcefully, this time demandingly, even though as the kisses continued, and Akira continued to accept them, they gradually began to soften. The tip of Keisuke's tongue parted his lips and fumbled its way inside. Its wet, insistent pressure made his breath catch in his throat. He could tell that Keisuke was trying to control himself, and failing. Driven by an ardent passion, the hot muscle chapped Akira's tongue and scored the wall of his mouth. It was the first time anyone had ever touched Akira like this. The ferocity of it caught him off guard and started a faint heat building inside of him.
ずっと、こうしたかった。
Keisuke whispered, his breath warm, between kisses. Maybe it was because he felt a little shaken. Keisuke's words, thick with emotion, fanned the flame still hotter. His hands clutched at Keisuke's hair. It felt like Keisuke was drinking the very breath from his lungs. All of Keisuke's wild, inexperienced kisses were fueled by a deep undercurrent of emotion. It gripped Akira, slowly carrying him away.
ずっと好きだったんだ。おかしくなりそうなくらい。
The whispers kept coming, his tone feverish, delirious. Again and again, their tongue twisted together, until Akira could no longer tell which was his. He felt a sweet numbness spreading through his brain. Finally, Keisuke released him. Smiling shyly, he took Akira's hand and pressed it to his own chest.
すごい緊張してる。どうしよう。俺、このまま心臓止まりそうだ。
His heart beat hard and fast against Akira's palm.
アキラは
Keisuke laid his palm softly against Akira's chest, searching for his heartbeat. After a few moments, he smiled happily. With renewed urgency, he pulled off Akira's jacket and lifted his shirt. His hands felt far hotter skin to skin than had through the fabric of Akira's clothing. Sweaty hands caressed him all over, as though desperate to know everything there was to know about him. The fingertips paid equal attention to the lines of his muscles and bones alike. Normally, Akira would have felt nothing noteworthy in response to someone touching his skin. But this was different. A finger brushed against his nipple, and a tingle shot through his body.
アキラ。
バカ、やめろ。
Keisuke gave his other nipple a flick of his tongue, then pulled the whole thing into his mouth and wrapped the hot, wet muscle around it. The shock this time was stronger than before, more electric. It brought with a sudden upwelling of shame, and he pushed Keisuke away. Keisuke stopped and looked at him. There was fresh doubt in his eyes.
嫌ならやめるから俺。
Akira looked up at him, his chest rising and falling rapidly. He hadn't been aware until now that he was breathing so fast. It disturbed him to think that something unfamiliar was awakening inside him.
なんか変な感じが。
Something in Keisuke's eyes flickered, and he gave Akira's nipple another lick.
やめろって。
But Keisuke ignored Akira's protest. Watching Akira's reactions closely, he crushed the nipple under his tongue, then sucked it noisily into the back of his mouth. Keisuke's hot fingers crawled across his torso, down his stomach, then dropped further still below his waist. Meanwhile, Keisuke's ministrations to his chest were gradually sapping his strength. He tried to shove Keisuke off, but his arms would barely respond. He was powerless to resist as Keisuke undid his belt and lowered his pants. Cold air brushed his exposed crotch. His body flared with heat.
何やってんだよ。
ごめん。でも、もう。
The look Keisuke gave him was apologetic, but committed. His hand closed around Akira's still half-soft manhood. Akira let out a low groan. Keisuke's hand was hot enough to burn. His fingers wiggled once, as if testing how it felt, and then began to rub. In his lust, Keisuke had forgotten to be gentle. His motions were forceful, demanding, painful even. The intensity of the sensations took his breath away. His head spun, his skin tingled. A hot, sweet numbness was rising inside him, forcing gasps and groans toward his lips. He fought to hold them back.
アキラ、声聞きたい。
Fever whisper brushed his ear. He couldn't let Keisuke hear his cries. What pride he had left would not allow it. Slowly, Keisuke's free hand slid up his chest and neck, all the way to his tight, clamped lips. The heat filled his body now. It felt like it was about to erupt, and the struggle to stay silent and growing, agonizing. He just wanted to scream, to let it all out. But no, he had to hold on. All he could do was breathe harder, faster, and hope that will be enough. Keisuke was still stroking his rod. He could hear moist, obscene noises, building as fluid leaked from the tip, smoothing Keisuke's motions. Tingling grew stronger in the pit of his belly, and his arms, which he had raised to push Keisuke away, betrayed him by clinging to Keisuke instead.
アキラ、ごめん。
As Keisuke breathed, a hussy sighed. His wet fingers slipped between Akira's legs, toward his entrance. The sensation was like being doused with ice water. He opened his mouth to protest, but before he could, Keisuke sang one slippery digit inside him.
ケイスケ。
It felt horribly out of place. He groaned in pain.
ごめん、アキラ。でも、もう。
Akira stiffened as Keisuke swirled his fingers around, a hungry, impatient motion. The invading digit then pulled free, but before he could think to relax, something thicker and hotter arrived to replace it. He had known it was coming, but the agony far exceeded his expectations. He tried to push Keisuke back.
ちょっと待て。おい。
ごめん。
Keisuke's eyes were wild and frenzied.
無理。止められない。
A lens of pain tore into his body, pressing toward his core. There was no way a few strokes of a finger could have eased his taut flesh enough for this. He clawed at Keisuke's back, digging his nails deep. It was a last-ditch attempt to escape. But Keisuke's hips kept pushing. There was no skill or finesse in this, only a primal lust. His thoughts consumed by pain, Akira could only grit his teeth and wait for it to end. And then it happened. Memories flashed through his head, memories of the night Keisuke had raped him. He couldn't breathe. It all came back. The fear, the pain, every detail his body hadn't forgotten. He started to pull away. But then, Keisuke's arms were wound tightly around him, his face buried deep in his shoulder. He sounded close to tears. Hearing this, Akira slid a hand into Keisuke's hair and made him lift his face. He'd heard right. There were tears in Keisuke's eyes, as though he felt Akira's pain as his own. Keisuke's words were charged with emotion. They made the conflict inside him clear. He was too desperate to be gentle, too starved to wait, but was trying, nevertheless, to share Akira's pain as best he could. This was not the same Keisuke who attacked him that night. Akira's body was still racked with pain, but his heart suddenly felt a tiny bit lighter. Keisuke was trembling. Akira rubbed his back to comfort him. Still holding Akira tight, Keisuke slowly began to trust. His inner walls convulsed in agony. The momentum that was driving Keisuke cared nothing for his pain. But at the same time, in a very real way, these tremors and jolts that savaged his body were a manifestation of Keisuke's feelings for him, no different than the words he had spoken. It was like they were having an honest conversation for the very first time. As Akira held on for dear life, he felt Keisuke kiss his forehead. More kisses rained down, drawing a fire trail southward, to his cheeks, his nose, and then to his lips. As Akira surrendered to Keisuke's rhythm, he felt fingers close around his flaccid manhood. A few soft strokes, and he began to feel something else amid the pain. Realizing the effect he was having, Keisuke timed his strokes to coincide with each thrust of his hips. The combination of pain and pleasure was maddening. It flowed along his nerves like molten rock. Finally, as a deep thrust met with a firm squeeze of his member, Akira cried out. A moment later, he realized what he'd done and was overcome with shame. It hadn't sounded like him at all. But Keisuke gave him a small, joyful smile, tears still shining in his eyes, and began to pump even harder. The pain was still there, and still strong, but something else was there too, and it was steadily devouring Akira's will. He could no longer keep himself from crying out with every thrust. His back scraped against the floor, the sound of skin slapping together mingled with their hot, panting breaths. His thoughts were lost in a feverish haze, His physical senses were everything now. When Keisuke's hand stroked the full length of his manhood, working as though to squeeze it dry, waves of pleasure drowned out the pain. Keisuke pressed his legs open wider, fingers digging into his skin. He couldn't tell if this gave him pleasure or pain. He knew only that pain was no longer in control. He fixed his blurry vision on Keisuke. In all the years they'd known each other, he had never seen such ecstasy on Keisuke's face. It was strange to think that he was its source. All of Keisuke's expressions, the ones he was familiar with, flickered past his mind's eye. For some reason, he thought that his expression revealed more of the true Keisuke than any other. Keisuke's desire for him was honest and pure. He found himself wondering if he too were wearing such an expression. Suddenly, Keisuke's thrust picked up speed. He was reaching his limit. Akira didn't think that he could hold out much longer either. Without breaking the rhythm of his thrust, Keisuke stroked Akira's manhood faster and harder. Keisuke's eyes were shut, his teeth clenched tight. From time to time, sighs leaked past his lips. It sounded like he was weeping. Keisuke's whole body stiffened, and a hot liquid gushed deep into Akira's core. At the same time, Keisuke gripped his shaft so hard that it brought a spike of pain. This pushed Akira over the edge, and he followed Keisuke into climax. Lights exploded behind his eyes, filling his mind with white static. Several seconds passed before he could think again. Keisuke quivered, shifted a little inside him, as though to sever the sensation, then collapsed into his chest. He accepted Keisuke's lame weight. His seat was spread between their stomachs. The numbness slowly seeping through him made him too lazy to move away. Keisuke's breath was hot and heavy against Akira's neck, but his voice was soft and satisfied.
Akira, 好きだよ.
He looked up with deep affection in his eyes and held Akira tight. In an answer, Akira wound one arm around Keisuke's back. A covering languor had spread through his body. He let his head back, and there, he noticed the light coming in through the window. At some point, the rain clouds had dispersed, and the sun was starting to rise. It looked like it would be a bright day.